For the following exercise, evaluate the function f at the values f of -2, f of -1, etc. So here is our function, okay? And what we are tasked to do is they're essentially asking us, find the f of x value when x is equal to either -2, -1, 0, 1, 2, etc. All right? So we have a series of steps to follow down here at the bottom. Fairly straightforward. All right, so let's take a look at the first one, f of -2. The first thing I'm going to do is rewrite the equation. Okay, 8x squared minus 7x plus 3. And now I'm going to plug in my indicated f of x value of f of -2 in for f of x. So all I'm going to do is simply now plug in my -2 for x, basically. Now, if I do that on the left-hand side, guess what I have to do on the right-hand side? I have to do the same thing, right? So I'm going to plug in now, everywhere I see an x, I'm going to plug in a -2, okay? Careful with your parentheses here. Whenever you're plugging in any value for x or any variable, always put the value in parentheses. It'll reduce your likelihood of error, okay? Because if you don't include, especially here, if you don't include that negative sign within your parenthesis, right, and you square it, your result will be negative then. But if you include the negative within the parenthesis and then square it, it becomes positive because a negative times a negative is a positive. All right, so just be very careful with that. So now the third step is just to simply simplify. All right, so here it's going to be 8 times then, as we mentioned, that'll be a positive 4. -7 times -2 is a positive 14 plus 3. Right, we can keep on simplifying this. 8 times 4 is going to be 32 plus 14 plus 3. Right, and now, so then we get f of -2, that's going to be equal to, when you combine these two together, you're going to get 46, and then add 3 to it, so you should get a 49 here. All right, so that pretty much takes care of that one. So let's now take a look at the next one. So number 2, okay. So now number 2 here, we're going to have, again, I'm just going to rewrite my equation. So this is 8x squared minus 7x plus 3. The next one is going to be f of -1. Okay, so simply plug in now -1 everywhere you see x. Okay, so now this will become -1 inside the parentheses squared minus 7 times -1 plus 3. Now f of -1 then will be equal to, this will now be 8 times +1 plus 7 plus 3. All right, so we have -1 here is equal to then, this is essentially 8, right? Plus 7 is going to be 15, plus another 3 is going to be 18. So there you go. Now let's do number 3. All right, so same thing, rewrite the equation. F of x is equal to 8x squared minus 7x plus 3. Now we're going to evaluate at x is equal to 0, right? So everywhere you see an x, plug in a 0. So here this is going to be 8 times 0 squared minus 7 times 0 plus 3. And this one is easy, right? Everything's multiplied by 0 except for 3, so therefore that's your only value that's left. Okay. Now on the other problems we've done, right, we were able to detect a certain pattern. But if you notice here, if you start looking at the difference between these values, they're going to change. All right. And the reason why they're going to change is because this equation is not linear. It's a quadratic. And therefore, the change is not constant as it was in your linear equation. All right? If you were to look at the graph, right, it's like a weird kind of parabola shape. So we're not going to get a nice difference between these values. Okay? That being the case, we cannot extrapolate and try to detect a pattern here, okay, and find the 1 and 2 value, meaning x, the value of f of x when x is 1, and that of 2. You probably could, but I think it's actually going to be too hard. So instead, let's just calculate it on out, okay? So in this particular case, though, since I'm running out of space, I'm just going to simply, instead of rewriting this equation, I'm just going to now start substituting in x right away. So for number 4, it's f of 1. And therefore, anywhere you see an x on the right-hand side, plug in a 1 for it. Okay, minus 7 times 1 plus 3. Simplify this on down. Oops. And then this is simply going to be 8 minus 7 plus 3. And then f of 1 is now simply going to be 4. Great. And then we'll do the same thing for now number 5. So now we're going to do f of 2. All right, so it's 8 multiplied by 2 squared minus 7 times 2 plus 3. Okay, so now here's f of 2. This is now going to be 8 times 4 minus 14 plus 3. So this is now going to reduce down to, simplify down to 32 minus 14 plus 3, right? So now we're going to have a value of, so this looks like it's going to be 6, excuse me, sorry about that. This is going to be 18, and then plus 3 is going to be 21, and that should take care of that. All right, I'm just going to double check myself since I'm a little tired at the moment. 32 minus 14 plus 3, I don't want to make a mistake, and it is 21. All right, so guys, thank you very much for tuning in. Please remember to subscribe. See you next time.